As I said, we have three big initiatives: energy, jobs in the economy, and regulatory reform. And so the American people are going to see us passing bills all this year and next year focused on these three issues, in addition to the other things that we work on. We work on a plethora of subjects here. But I introduced a bill on the first day which will help us deal with regulatory reform. It's a bill, I'm proud to say, has passed the House before with bipartisan support, and I'm very proud to say that when I introduced the bill on Tuesday, it had bipartisan original co-sponsors. I'm very pleased that Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez from Mr. LaMalfa's state of California joined me in introducing legislation to shed light on how federal policies impact the budgets of state and local governments and private sector employers. The bill is called the Unfunded Mandates Information and Transparency Act. It's H.R. 50, would fix loopholes within the Bipartisan Regulatory Reform Act known as UMRA, which passed in 1995. I introduced this legislation in the past 4 Congresses, and it has successfully passed the House with bipartisan support on 3 separate occasions. Every year, Washington imposes thousands of rules on local governments and small businesses. Hidden in those rules are costly mandates that stretch state and city budgets and make it harder for North Carolina businesses to hire. While Congress cannot create prosperity, we can work to ensure entrepreneurs and employers aren't crushed under costly regulations. This legislation will help restore transparency and hold Washington bureaucrats accountable for the true cost in dollars and in jobs that federal dictates pose to the economy. Americans are better served when regulators are required to measure and consider the cost of rules they create. The bill increases transparency in the regulatory process and protects state and local governments from the burden of unfunded and often unnecessary mandates that waste time and money, is what my colleague Loretta Sanchez said. H.R. 50 would increase transparency about the cost imposed by unfunded mandates and holds the federal government accountable for considering those costs before passing them on to local governments and businesses. The legislation would make it easier for people to determine how much these regulations are going to cost and make sure that we're not imposing unnecessary rules and regulations on both state and local governments and the private sector. So I'm very pleased that that bill has passed, and it's going to be a part of the regulatory reform package that passes this House. And I encourage people watching this to contact your member of Congress if you're aware of unnecessary rules and regulations that are out there that we could do something about. Obviously, we need rules and regulations. We want to make sure that we have safe food, that the airlines are flying correctly and safely. We want to make sure the railroads are operating safely. We want to make sure our cars are safe to drive in. But as we all know, often bureaucrats in Washington and sometimes at the state and local level look for ways to create jobs for themselves, create a reason for their being, and pass along rules and regulations that are simply unnecessary for the health and safety of the people in this country. And so what we want to do is reduce those rules and regulations. That reduces cost. That helps with our emphasis on jobs and the economy. And I believe that's going to be very important to us in getting our